Kohl's remains one of the largest department store chains in the United States, with approximately 1,150 locations spread across 49 states. Over the past 6 decades, they have built a customer base of more than 60 million people, representing over 17% of the country's population. They maintain that roughly 80% of Americans live within 15 miles of a Kohl's store. The name originates from Max Kohl, a Polish immigrant who founded the company over a century ago when he opened a small grocery store in Milwaukee, Wisconsin. Over time, that single store expanded into a substantial regional chain. In 1962, he launched his first department store to complement the existing grocery operations. This timing was strategic, as the first Kmart, Walmart, and Target had all opened earlier that same year. About 10 years later, the Kohl family divested the business, which included roughly 5 department stores and 50 grocery locations. After another decade, the two divisions were separated. The grocery chain gradually declined until complete closure in 2003, while the department store division evolved into a retail success story. In 1992, Kohl's department stores were still entirely concentrated within the Midwest when the company held its initial public offering that valued the enterprise at approximately $200 million. By 2003, they achieved national brand recognition when they made an aggressive expansion into California by opening 28 stores in that region. Throughout the 2010s, Kohl's largely halted expansion. Following an aggressive multi-decade growth phase, they significantly slowed new store openings, and their sales stabilized around $18 to $19 billion annually. They began distributing dividends to shareholders in 2012, which were increased each year throughout the decade, essentially providing value through profit distribution rather than reinvesting for business growth. Unfortunately for Kohl's, nearly every key metric became concerning. Sales have been declining steadily. Excluding the pandemic year, current sales have reached their lowest point since 2006. Holiday sales for 2024, typically the busiest and most crucial period for any retailer, were actually lower than the 2020 holiday season. Accompanying this decline, profits have been significantly reduced. The company even reported losses in some years, which would have been unprecedented in the past. Hey, quick favor before we dive deeper. If you're enjoying this deep dive into the company's documentary, smash that like button and subscribe. Now back to our video. At the start of 2025, they announced plans to close a distribution center in California along with 27 underperforming stores, representing about 2 to 3% of their total locations, but still more than they had ever closed before. Later that same month, they announced workforce reductions affecting 10% of their corporate employees. While not the biggest concern individually, these moves provided further evidence that the company was not heading in a positive direction. Perhaps the most dramatic indicator of their decline was the stock price, which fell below $15 per share earlier in 2025, reaching levels not seen since the late 1990s. In 2020, they reduced their dividend for the first time, which was somewhat expected, but they have maintained it at 50 cents per quarter since 2022. That year, when the stock price looked more favorable, reports emerged that the company might be taken private for approximately $8 to $9 billion. That deal never materialized, and Kohl's market capitalization has since fallen dramatically. By late 2025, however, there are signs of stabilization and modest improvement. After spending decades as one of the biggest, most beloved, and most stable retailers, Kohl's has been struggling. So, for this analysis, I've identified what I believe to be 5 of the biggest reasons behind these struggles, along with recent developments showing potential recovery. Reason number 1, inventory management challenges. Starting with inventory management, something consumers might not consider much, but it represents a critical aspect of operating a clothing store. Consider the dilemma. Having too much inventory means paying storage costs and pressure to sell before items become outdated. And if that happens, there's no room to store new styles. Conversely, having too little inventory or the wrong inventory means losing sales and frustrating customers because you don't have what they're looking for. It's a delicate balancing act. Over the past few years, Kohl's has been widely criticized for their inventory management, particularly in 2022, when even their incoming CEO Tom Kingsbury acknowledged their inventory levels got out of control. They had excessive stock, forcing them to sell much of it at discounted prices to make room for new merchandise, which contributed to the net loss reported that year. He then attempted to simplify inventory management, partially by reducing petite sizes, which ended up hurting sales and upsetting customers in a different way. He later admitted the decision was short-sighted, stating, "We thought we could do more with a lot less, and that didn't work out for us." They've been continuously adjusting their inventory strategy in response to tariffs and market conditions, making this an ongoing challenge. Reason number 2, leadership instability. My next reason behind their struggles is leadership instability. While this might seem like a general reason applicable to any struggling company, Kohl's situation is particularly noteworthy. Recently, Kohl's has resembled a struggling sports team that keeps hiring new coaches, hoping to find the right fit with fresh ideas that could fix everything. When the previous analysis was done, Michelle Gass was the company's CEO, and she was in charge when things started deteriorating. In 2022, she was replaced by Tom Kingsbury, who had been mentioned earlier. Then he was replaced by Ashley Buchanan in early 2025. That appointment ended up becoming a significant scandal because he was fired only a few months later for conflict of interest with a vendor. According to reports, there was a romantic relationship involved with Chandra Holt, founder of Incredibrew, and he arranged business deals with her company on highly unusual terms that favored the vendor, clearly not acting in the company's best interest. As of late November 2025, Michael Bender has been appointed as the permanent CEO after serving as interim CEO since May. Multiple times now, they've hired someone new who was supposed to turn everything around, and each time it has been problematic, often leaving them in a worse position than when they started. However, there are early signs that the leadership situation may be stabilizing under Bender's direction. Reason number 3, external pressures. My next reason is external pressures, which admittedly is quite general, but we must acknowledge that Kohl's has been operating in a challenging environment, having to react to tariffs, interest rates, and reduced consumer spending. The pandemic hurt them for obvious reasons, and they have still not recovered to pre-pandemic levels. You could even argue it triggered their inventory issues. Beyond all of that, perhaps the biggest external factor has been online shopping. It has been a major challenge for most physical retailers, particularly department stores. Most traditional department stores are nowhere near their former levels, including Sears, Macy's, and JCPenney. One distinguishing factor for Kohl's is that they are mostly located outside of shopping malls, unlike those others, but they have still struggled to drive customer traffic to stores. To address this, they've had to get creative. In 2017, they started partnering with Amazon, allowing customers to return Amazon purchases at Kohl's stores. In 2020, they launched a massive partnership with Sephora, creating dedicated Sephora makeup sections within Kohl's stores. The concept was that Sephora would attract new, younger customers to Kohl's, who would then purchase Kohl's merchandise once they were already there. When you consider that these sales figures now include upwards of $2 billion from Sephora, you can imagine how much the rest of their sales have been declining. They have also transitioned away from private label brands, merchandise you can only find in Kohl's stores like Sonoma, in favor of more popular national brands. In 2013, private labels accounted for most of their business, and they have since fallen to less than a third. While these have been creative and somewhat effective ways to bring people into stores, they probably haven't been the most effective in creating loyal customers. Reason number 4, identity crisis. This leads directly into my next reason, losing their identity. Simply stated, 10 years ago, most people walking into Kohl's were shopping for items you could only find at Kohl's. Today, they are walking in to buy national brands sold at countless other stores. They're returning Amazon packages that could be returned elsewhere, and they are purchasing from Sephora sections that replicate what they could buy at a standalone Sephora. For Kohl's, the core demographic has always been middle-aged, middle-income women. As some observers have noted, it is fundamentally a store for moms. More than other customer groups, they are the ones utilizing Kohl's cash and using it to buy items for their homes and families. However, Sephora generally isn't a store for moms. It has a much younger and trendier customer base. They actually removed jewelry displays to make room for Sephora, which seems counterintuitive since moms would likely prefer the jewelry. In 2025, during his brief tenure as Kohl's CEO, Ashley Buchanan identified the core problem when he said, Recently, our focus has been heavily weighted on new products to attract new customers, and we are de-emphasizing products and categories that our core customers love. They have since reinstalled many of those jewelry displays, acknowledging it may have been a mistake. But I think they're still caught in the middle, uncertain about what they want to be. Is it a trendy store or a family store? Is it meant for older people or younger people? By trying to do everything, they have alienated their existing customers while failing to build significant brand loyalty with new customers. Recent reports suggest the company is making progress in refocusing on their core customer base. Reason number 5, debt burden. Finally, my last reason behind their struggles is straightforward: having too much debt. From what I can determine, much of it originated from stock repurchases starting around 2006. That year, they sold their credit card business to JP Chase for $1.5 billion, stating they would use the proceeds to open new locations and buy back stock. They quickly completed a $2 billion repurchase program before announcing a new $2.5 billion repurchase program over the following years. And I'll remind you that today, shares of Kohl stock have less value than they did back then. Meanwhile, owing around $2 billion for an extended period has been draining. Over the past decade, they have paid almost $3 billion in interest, reducing their profits each year and making it difficult to spend money on improvements that could potentially revitalize the business. Recent positive developments. However, there are some encouraging signs as we approach the end of 2025. In the third quarter of fiscal 2025, Kohl's reported better than expected results. While net sales still decreased by 2.8% and comparable sales decreased by 1.7%, these declines were smaller than anticipated. The gross margin increased by 51 basis points, and the company raised its full-year financial outlook. The stock surged over 30% following these earnings results, though it has since settled around $24 per share as of late November 2025. Under new CEO Michael Bender, who brings 30 years of leadership experience from companies like Walmart, L Brands, and PepsiCo, the company appears to be making progress on its turnaround initiatives. Bender has emphasized returning to the product categories and assortments that core customers love, particularly in women's apparel, jewelry, and petite clothing. Early results suggest these efforts are beginning to resonate with customers, though the company acknowledges there is still much work to do. The business remains significantly smaller than it was in 2019, about 22% smaller, while competitors like TJ Maxx, Walmart, and Target have all grown. But the rate of decline has slowed, and there are signs that the company is finding its footing again. Looking forward. So let me know in the comments, what do you think about Kohl's? What is your perception of it? And how has that perception changed over the past 5 to 10 years? If you are one of those 60 million customers, what do you like or dislike about everything that has been happening? Do you agree with my list of reasons behind their struggles? Or do you think something should be added or subtracted from it? Thank you for watching.